So this right here that I highlight, this right here was its best play that it's saying. This was a really good play for itself because it was a almost a 1% gap move right here. So that's what it likes that. If the stock or if we end up moving, a certain amount, it's gonna love that, and it's gonna kind of look into that as well, and look at criteria as well into that. So that's the cool thing about it. But again, you got to be a little bit more cautious, kind of ride it open. Some plays, of course, right? Ride it open. I'm slamming. This was just one of those mornings, and I'm trusting the bot. But this was just one of those mornings where I knew I got to sit back. This is going to be a little, this is going to be a little confusing, not confusing, but tricky because we could have easily knifed down here, hit that 677 level down here for SPY, just dumped, or QQ, called out QQ. We easily could have saw QQ lose that 613 level, hit right into 611, 610, and that's a $3 move down, and then we can easily see that kind of trickle down more. Now, I want you guys to remember this: if gap down days are a lot harder to play than gap up days. Likely, anytime we get a gap down, do not be looking to slam puts right at open unless we're opening up under a weekly low. We did not open up under a weekly low here, so likely we're going to eat the gap right back up. And if you're going to play puts, look for the gap fill to short at high of day for that move down, because you're always going to see, something like this. You're always going to see that, and identify which stock is stronger and which weaker. SPY was weaker here. I wouldn't have gone Q puts. I would have gone SPY puts. But SPY was stronger at open, right? And then Q caught up. So, right here, this was a pretty banger move from 682 all the way down to 679. That's still a really good move. So just kind of, keep that in mind. And best way for you to understand like what's stronger and what's weaker is just, Q was down $4 or however much, $4 or $5, and SPY was only down, 2.5 or 3. So that's one way to look at it, like pre-market. Who's down more? Who's, because they're kind of close in price. I wouldn't say super close, but SPY's at 680 and QQ's at 617. They're relative. You can look at percentages, right? In relativity, that might help as well. Other than that, again, look around too. One thing I do is look around. NVIDIA was showing strength, Amazon was showing strength. I know that's going to affect QQQ. So I was like, all right, let me be a little bit more cautious here and know things like that. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, it works. It works really well when we break out a range as well. That's really good. It's a little bit harder when we're in range and it's low volume. It's always going to alert it's pattern recognition. So it's going to alert. And so on paper, a trade could easily look like it's going to work and then it not work because there's other factors to it, right? Like low volume or, gaps and stuff like that. So there's other elements to it that the bot can't detect because there's no way I can program into, detecting that. It can detect gaps and stuff like it already does. But it has no way of really understanding how the market really moves, because you guys know, like as a trader, you guys know when you came into this, you're like, oh, logically we should go down. And then plenty of days where we logically should have gone down or gone up. It just did the complete opposite or did things that make no sense. I can't tell you how many times I was like, all right, this should do exactly like this because logically that makes sense. And then it does something completely different. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like how, frustrating, I know. So it's hard to even build AI around that. And it's all about just experience. So I would say just be a little bit more cautious with it at open, and kind of, don't take a trade based off blindly off it unless it makes sense to you, right? If you're like, look, I'm fully prepared to slam calls here on NVIDIA because we're about to hold this demand. Let's see what happens. And then the AI just alerts calls on it and let's go. Plenty of times that's what I look for right there when I play RioCap AI. If I'm like, all right, I'm about to slam calls here, I'm already ahead of the game. NVIDIA opened up right here. Say it opened up right here, and then we dipped into here right here, and then it held and it starts hammering. Once it starts hammering like this, I'm like, I'm in. I know this pattern. I like this. I'm going to front run it. I'm slamming calls. Plenty of times this has happened to me. I slam calls like this, and then RioCap AI I get the alert a minute later, 2 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm banking on this for sure. And then plenty of times, like I've seen it, even on the roll up, I'll end up slamming a call, and then RealCap AI will come in and be like, it sees the same thing. And all right, that's how I know, like, perfect. Like, use it as an additive as well, for sure. It helps a lot. And then there's times where I've honestly blindly followed it and made money off it. Plenty of times. I have an account dedicated to just following the AI alerts. I take one a day, and I try and just focus on